valve check time finally on the CRF for the first time. I'm going to do it start to finish, and hopefully we'll just be checking. It should be pretty quick, and I'm so confident that it's just going to be a check and not a replacing of the shims that I don't even have shims to replace if that were the case. So fingers crossed that I don't eat my words. It's funny, the second I say it's valve check time, I actually check the miles, which is 1572, and then I reference the schedule here in the manual, and it says it's at 1800 miles, but I'm going to still do it anyway because who cares, 250 miles or so, what's the difference? But in any case, this is a very simple process. Just got to get a few things out of the way just so we can get to this valve cover right here, put it at top dead center, and then use some feeler gauges and see that it's in spec. If it's not in spec, then it's going to turn into how to shim your valves, in which case I will need to sit and wait for a little while I actually order those shims. But that's later problems. Right now we need to get all this stuff out of the way, so we're going to take the seat off, take the shrouds off, take the tank off. Got the 3 bolts off of the tank and just moved up to the side just so we can have some access under here. We have to make some disconnections before we pull the tank off entirely. There's going to be 2 things connected to this fuel pump here. There's an electrical connector right here and the fuel line itself right here. This electrical connector right here, there's a tab on the back side. Just squeeze that, pop it out. This one is the fuel line, so there's a plastic cap right here. Underneath this is the actual clip. There's like a U-style clip that's green, so I'll pull that down and that should disconnect the fuel line, and I'll have a rag ready because there's probably going to be a little bit of residual fuel in there. Now we're looking where the gas tank used to be, and we can see the top of the valve cover here. This needs to come off so we can check. We have to remove this crankcase breather from this little connection right here. 2 bolts, and then the spark plug boot and spark plug will pop out, and then this whole piece should come out and we can actually see what's inside. Let's get all of this as clean as possible first. Oh, there we go. It comes straight out. A little tight, but so much better than the Benelli, that's for sure. Now we can actually look and see what's in there. There's 4 things we have to check, 4 valves. There's going to be 2 up here, 2 for the exhaust. That's what this little fork is, and so these springs right between that spring and that fork on each side, that's our exhaust valves. Then we have our intake valves, which are actually under here. These are going to be really hard to see, but right here you can see where my finger is. There's a rocker. There's a similar one right here that you can't see, and so underneath that are the intake ones. So those are going to be a little bit harder to get to. We'll probably look at those last and just take care of the exhaust ones first because those are the easiest. Before we go checking this, obviously we need to make sure that this is at top dead center and that everything is lined up, so that way when we're checking it, we're actually checking where it's supposed to be. So let's move down to the bottom of the engine where we have to move it so we can align it, get it at top dead center. Now we're down at the bottom of the engine. This is the right hand side, and this is going to be covered by one of those plastic things if you still have them, but we're looking for this bolt right here, which is a 10 millimeter. We're going to pop this off and look inside, and this is where we'll be able to turn the engine and has the markers for top dead center. I can see now why people who have videos like this, it's so hard to see in there, but I hope I do it justice. So I'm gonna get my phone light here actually, and there's a couple things in here that we need to look at. This one, first of all, the bolt, that's what we're gonna use to turn the engine to get it in time. We're gonna use the timing marker right here, and then if you see way back there, there's 2 lines on the gear behind it. One of those is the top dead center, so it's marked with a T, and then there's one marked with an F that's shortly after that. That's for the fire, I think. There you go, see that? There's a little T and there's a little F that's cut off, but you know what I mean, right? And as a final check on the other side with that T marked up, we can see right here on the cam, there's 2 lines right here with a tick mark on both sides that line up with the lines right here behind where it sandwiches together. So now we know everything is in time. We're looking at one of the exhaust valves, at least the one on this side. There's a spring here with a little plate and then this rocker arm on top, and you see how this moves a little bit because we're at top dead center. So it's between this plate and this rocker. So I have my feeler gauge here and I have the 0.28 millimeter shim exactly. So we're just gonna put this in here and see what we get. So now it's in there. and we can move it, but there's some resistance. I think this is spot on. This is exactly 0.28. Just to double check, I'm gonna go one size up. This is 0.3. Now it's in there, but yeah, I'm pushing and it's not moving at all. You know what, just for funsies, we're gonna put in the shim that's smaller, the 0.25 millimeter, and see what that does. It's in there, but it's like completely free play, no resistance whatsoever. We are perfect. Exhaust number 2. Let's see what we get. A little bit of resistance. It feels a little less resistant than the other side, but I think we're still okay. All right, here we go, 0.3 mil. Yep, it moves a little bit, but that's definitely sticking. I think this side is probably like at 0.285, maybe 0.29, but still well within spec. All right, this is an absolutely horrible view, but it's probably the best I can find of showing the intake. So right there, I'll put a little pointer. There's the spring that's hiding under that little cover for the intake, one of the two anyway. There's another one to the side of it. I think I'm gonna try to actually take some pictures and see if I can get a better image that I can show you right now with what I'm looking at specifically, and I'll get the feeler gauge in there hopefully and should be able to check and see if it's in spec. Spec this time for intake that I'm looking for is 0.11 mil. I don't actually have a 0.11 mil, I have a 0.10 mil, but this should go in nicely. So if I put my finger in here, I can't see where I'm going. Oh, there we go. Move the light around so I can see, am I actually in there or am I just messing around here? Am I? No, I'm on top of it, not underneath it. This is by far the hardest part, is just checking these intake valves, because you can't see anything. Ah!
Eventually.
Well, that took a lot longer than I'd like to admit, but I think it's actually good news because I checked my manual and I was actually looking at the wrong spot. I'll put a picture of the manual up on the screen right now, but basically you want to check on the top of the rocker between the rocker and the cam rather than the rocker and the spring. So it's moving a little bit. It's got some free play, but it's still tight. That's at 0.13. I checked with 0.15 and 0.15 was much tighter. I don't think I was able to get it through there and moving, so I think we're still good here. All right, so we finished checking the intake. I wrote down here in my manual at the mileage that I have currently, my 4 values right here: exhaust, intake, and then left and right side. So we have 0.28 exactly on this side of the exhaust. We had 0.29 or 0.285, I don't know, somewhere between the 0.28 and the 0.3 millimeter. So that was well within spec. And then thankfully we are still in spec with the intake now that I've finally checked it and verified that it was the right place. We have 0.13, a little bit on the high side, but I put in 0.15, it would not move, so we're good there. And then this side, 0.10, went in just fine and had the perfect amount of resistance. Across the board, we're well within the plus or minus 0.03 millimeters for both the intake and the exhaust, so that's fantastic. I did not jinx myself this time. I did not have to go buy shims, but now we got to put it all back together. So reverse the process. Put the shroud and the seat back on. Didn't bore you with the details on that because I'm pretty sure you know how to do it. Also, I added a brace here as well. Did not film a video on this one, so don't expect that to come out anytime soon, but I will tell you, I found this on eBay for like half the price of Works Connection or any of those other ones. And even though there was absolutely no instructions and came with some really weird bolts and things like that that didn't end up being used. Either way, if you're interested in having something like this, the eBay description will be down below. That's a valve check in the works. Thankfully, it was not shimming the valves, a how-to on that, and hopefully I won't have to make a video like that for a very, very long time. So, thanks for watching.